Hello everyone, good evening. Hey Lahide, hey Razel. Thanks for tuning in to join us. Glad to have you here. And what's up? How are you guys doing this evening? Well, night. And hey Little, glad you could join us as well. I see the whole crew is here. Those. Also, this tune is pretty good. So the stream was a little delayed because I was off having dinner and only got back like not too long ago. And and this weather is way too hot. Whenever you venture out into the wilderness, you need to spend a little bit of time to take a rest, a short rest when you get back to the studio or wherever, home. But today I'm going to be doing something I don't usually paint up. The other half of the hand. One moment. Successful mage hand. So I 3D printed this hand of the Archlich, better known as the hand of Vecna. And I'm going to be painting this in stream today. So you will notice that it has a bit of color on it already, other than the usual grey resin. That's because I had a bit of a dark green that I just airbrushed on as a primer so that I could get paint to stick a little more easily. So it's a friend. And if any of you watch Stranger Things, you would know that Vecna played quite an important part as the antagonist of, I think, the previous season, season 3. Could be wrong. I don't watch it. So, in D&D lore, the hand of Vecna is the mummified hand of the Archlich Vecna. And it has quite a bit of power, so if you cut your hand off and you attach Vecna's hand, you get some pretty awesome things. With the downside being that you have to cut your hand off and attach Vecna's hand, which is kind of creepy and may or may not result in you being mind controlled by an Archlich. That's normally not a good thing. Normally. So I'm gonna go for a mummified look for this hand. And because I wanted to have a little of that undead skin tone in there before I started painting over it, I had a bit of that dark camel green, just airbrush in. And you notice that there are a little bit of like the cloth wrappings left over on the piece. So this is entirely printed in resin. It is reasonably heavy. It's a little bit of a chunk. It's chunky noises. And I figured that I would test out mixing up paints for this, because if I were to use my usual miniature paints, I would know exactly what paints I would use for which parts. But I figured that I would try using a little more of my usual student acrylic paints this time and see how that goes. So I'm gonna go get my brushes in a bit, but in the meantime, I'm gonna show off some of the colors I'm gonna use on this. So it's a dark purple. Dioxazine purple is something that you can normally see stored in miniature paint as a dark violet if you use Scale 75 paints, for example. And it's a really nice, very dark, very translucent purple that is perfect for making washes. So I want that in here because it's gonna look undead and weird, so it's gonna be purpley. And not to mention that I want to have a bit of skin tone, so I'm gonna use some portrait pink in here. It's kind of like a very bright skin tone color, like a very bright flash highlight, skin highlight color. And using this mixed with purple and mix a little bit of green will help dial down the pink in it and make it look a bit more unnatural. So these are the main colors that I'll be using for most of the skin. I've a little bit of blue here and there. Might mix in a bit of brown for some portions, but for most of it, I'm gonna play it by ear and see how it goes. So one moment while I go and grab my brushes, because I prepared absolutely everything, set it up, set my light, and then decided that I would leave my brushes over at my painting station. So I'm a very smart person and I'll be right back. I have returned with brushes. So one of the things I was like sneakily painting up for our table while Crimson was running games over the weekend was just really fun on stage. So I've kind of put down the base colors for the wooden portions already. I just need to wash them down a little bit. I need to paint in the fabric and that little shield crest in the back, the lanterns, and the fabric bunting on the front. So that's something I need to finish up. But honestly, I think it looks really good. And as ADM, having platforms like this are really useful because whether or not you're giving a prize presentation, whether or not it's a theatre troupe on stage, whether or not you are about to fireball the entire audience, these are all things that you kind of want on hand. And this is really nice and easy print as well. Printed entirely in resin, so you can see that it's got some gorgeous detail. And I'm quite pleased with it. Also, I was like painting this up. So this is from Vecna's. It is one of their villagers from their Angry Mob set. She certainly looks angry. And I still need to paint in the fire effects, a little bit of OSL, like how the light is catching the label of the shirt and her apron. But I think it looks pretty good for a start. I mean, I'm just kind of trying to paint out a whole set of villagers that are above the average tabletop standard because, like, I try to be too picky sometimes, but I like having things that are prettily painted. So I'm not gonna be painting everything to a high display standard, but going a little better with my paint job makes me happy. And it's also really good practice for focusing on the things that catch the eye a bit more when painting. Which is true if you're a DM or a commission painter where you need to paint things in large batches and you need to realize that some details are more important than others. And getting the overall look and feel of a miniature right is more important than, say, getting this one bit right and blend it perfectly, but it's on the bottom of the miniature, nobody sees it. You can do that if you're entering contests, sure, but for D&D, maybe not. Okay, so let's start with having some purple palettes. This Crisis purple is really dark. It's a great shadow color. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that purple to apply a little bit of a wash to some areas of the hand. Very handy. Also, look, I have purple on my hand. On the glove. And soon it shall be on the hand. It's such a lovely bright purple. And you can tell that at some points this flesh is kind of like sunken in. So this is where now we put maybe with burgundy color. But right now I'm going in with that tone. Kind of just vaguely applying it as a shadow. Hand of Nod. It actually reminds me of some of the beliefs about a hand of glory. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about that before. Well, if you ask Crimson, I'm sure Crimson is raring to go and tell everyone all about Vecna. Fun guy that. But Vecna's character is definitely something that older edition players will be more familiar with, unless they were introduced by Critical Role, because he played quite a big part in Critical Role. In one of the previous seasons, where he was a big bad fight. Man, I have to say that you cannot paint this if you have trypophobia. It is pretty disgusting. Would not recommend. Also, like, how exactly would you paint a mummified head? Like, I feel like a lot of the mummified art had a lot of like browns, greens. But I need to show that he's a lich, right? So a very motivated self started a bit of empire from scratch. Boy then. But he is, if I recall, the only lich that ever achieved godhood. Because a Serok technically failed. And Orcus does not count. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I actually quite like the law with Orcus as Tenebrous instead. I preferred him as a vestige rather than as Demon Lord turned God. I thought it made for a much more compelling story. You get some purple on the inside here. Yeah, I think I'm gonna apply more of the purple just all over the parts of the hand that are not immediately covered by fabric. Yes. In short, though, someone had a lot of fun playing an all-evil campaign and vote themselves into the law. Which is how it tends to be for a lot of the older edition characters. So I set up as one of Vecna's disciples. Yes, yes. Then he went, I must surpass Senpai and become a god. And that didn't go so well. Or did it? That depends entirely on how your party did in Tomb of Horrors. I mean, at certain power levels, there is functionally little difference between a high-level wizard and a god. Because divinity is a mechanic in D&D as well. And it just grants you more abilities. And some pretty cool domains. I mean, given that Orcus technically failed, I think the only demon lord to truly become a god is Asmodeus, right? Yes. But I thought that divinity was a really fun mechanic for high-level games. Yes, it's me. Hello, Rose. I'm painting up things. Paint something that's gonna be real handy for our games. Handy. So it's slightly underscaled, it's not quite the size of a hand. So if I were to make it the size of a hand, I'd scale up maybe 15%. I mean, as we all know, Asmodeus became a god because he was really good at lounging around in his chair, brooding. That is the real criteria. That actually have to look good when you're lounging around, sitting in a throne. Not like August, it's like just sex to his throne. Not very flattering. More purple. You know, given that I'm going to be painting this out as an example for people to purchase in the store, I feel like I might regret adding so many colors to this because then I wouldn't be able to remember which colors I used. But, well, life's like that. Okay. Right, so I kind of think I should let this sit and dry for a while. It's just looking amazingly creepy and zombified right now. Stay. And I will work a little bit on the base. So the base is meant to be a wooden plinth with a little bit of fabric. So let me just get some red on there because I feel like red fabric is gonna be gorgeous. Oh no. Let me push this fabric, okay, paint back into shape on the palette. Hello, nice Pat Pie. Thanks for joining us. Thankfully, I just had dinner, or I will be kind of hungry after this. And thanks Rose for following us as well. Always appreciate it. Thank you guys. Okay, so just got a bit of red in palette. This is a really bright, super bright red. But though this is a cadmium red and has very good coverage, right? So even if you put it over a darker color, it tends to show up a lot better. What you're gonna see later after I put this on is that you're not gonna get the kind of bright red that I have in the palette right away. This is super bright, super saturated. In fact, the camera actually desaturates it a little bit. And that's because most red pigments are very translucent. And why is that a good thing? Because it means that I can put many layers on and it doesn't look as high contrast, not as striking, right? But the red on the palette is the red in its brightest form, because acrylic paints have this thing called the acrylic medium that's mixed into the paint itself along the pigment. And it's normally white, so when you put that white and the red together, the paint always looks brighter and more saturated. But when you put it onto the miniature, once it starts drying, it's going to get a lot darker. And I noticed that that's where a lot of people start getting really discouraged, because they feel that, hey, you know, why is my mini not looking like how I expect it to look in my mind's eye? And the answer is, well, that's because you are using a transparent red over a very dark color like I am right here. See, it's so transparent that you can still easily see the dark color underneath. And when you only put down a single layer of color, with a transparent color, it looks very uneven. It's not smooth. So if you are someone that's very impatient, painting a color like this is hell. So what are some ways that you can get around the coverage of red being so bad? How do you make it cover better? The easiest way is to add another color to the red that has a little higher coverage. So let's say I have red up here. If I add a little bit of brown or black or white, then it's gonna cover way, way, way better than just a red alone. A bit of brown and some burnt sienna, which, while translucent, is not as translucent as the red. So you will find that most miniature paints actually have this pigment already mixed, which is why that it can cover more easily with one go. So brown, a bit of red in there, let's do a nice reddish brown. And I see that Rose has asked me to hydrate. I will do that shortly once I get this paint off my brush. The one I painted dry on my brush. So let's apply the color. See, right away, even though it's a different color, it goes on with way better coverage. It's not like the red portions where you can really see that difference in color. It goes on a lot more heavily. But that said though, I'm not really trying to go for some super smooth reds on here, so I don't mind just slowly building up some color and applying the original red over that to make it look right. Right, time to wash off my brush and grab a drink. Drinking is important. Do not dehydrate because you're painting. And do not drink your paint water either, because we also do that sometimes. And sometimes I try to move my mouse away and end up bumping and changing scenes, but no one saw that, right? Exactly. No one saw that. Smart boy. But I do have to say that with painting something larger like this, you're gonna find that you're gonna spend a lot of time doing the boring color painting, the base coating, and just trying to get it to the color that you want before you work over that color. And if that's not something that you like very much, or if you don't have an airbrush on hand, then it's a pain in the ass. Like, it's a major pain in the ass. And that's why people will tell you that painting something that's big or larger scale is a really different set of skills from painting something that's small. If I make a mistake in blending on something that's this large, it's different from I made a mistake in blending on something that's super small and tiny, right? I can kind of just dot a highlight on there, but here if I add a highlight, I actually have to blend it in with the rest of the meaning. So painting something that's big is a very big test of a painter's skill in blending and a very big test of their patience. So because I paint large scale stuff really often, I use a lot of my airbrush, and I often just base coat stuff in my airbrush or use a primer color that's a little closer to what I want to paint. Of course, recently Vazel reminded me of a spray paint brand that has a really good finish for painting with. And he grabbed me a couple of cans of it. And it's nice because those cans had colors you don't normally see. So they had like very nice dark brown and ivory. And if you paint enough terrain, you will know just how useful those colors are. Like for example, if I were to base coat this entire miniature with ivory, I could just go in and add washes and boom, done. But I wouldn't do that because I'd be making life difficult for myself. And we all know that, right? So just continuing to kind of throw a bit of a brown, a bit of red on the fabric of this base where the hand of Vecna is going to be displayed. So just working my giant size 4 brush, just making sure there's a little bit of color on there. Which means that even if I get lazy and decide to go on this more off screen with a nice trusty airbrush, at least I have a better base to work from. And I guess that we might not use this in games for a while. It might just be a display piece, but I think it's gonna look really cool. Like painting undead stuff is really fun because you get to let go of all your preconceived notions about painting skin, and you go in with all kinds of really weird disease colors. Oh man, this is so uneven, so ugly. And it's like coding terribly. That's fine. I'm gonna leave that for now. And it looks like we are just about done waiting for the parts to dry here. Alright, because I want to make the nails look a little different from the other parts, I'm going to use some of the brown that I mixed here. And I'm going to paint that along the base of the nails so I can do like, you know, the gradient shift on nails. And just be a little bit more precise here. But this is so much easier than painting something tiny. Good gracious. Have you ever painted a giant's toenails? Because I have, and I don't want to do it ever again. They were disgusting. Hill giants, you know? They're not the most strict about hygiene. Hello, Second Crimson. Glad you could join us. Thanks for tuning in. So today I am painting the hand of Vecna. I am giving Vecna a wonderful high quality manicure. And I'm painting his nails up with a few different shades of reddish brown. Because just because you're a lich doesn't mean that you don't keep up with a manicure. When all you're down to is just a bunch of like skin and bone, taking good care of the remaining bone is important. Remember, bone health. It's important to living a good life, especially when you get older. There's no point in trying to disintegrate a high-level party when you are afflicted by brittle bones, and you get one shot. I'm not really caring if any of that gets onto the eye because it takes a while to dry, so I can just wipe it off like that. Kinda. With a lot more application of water. Yeah, the eye stays put on this one. This is 3D printed by me. So it's gonna be something that I can offer in the store soon. It's not the official like biscuits one or anything like that. This is mine. It's all mine. So I kind of need to track the age of the fabric scraps. And I do have to say that it's a good thing because if this was the official premium one, I would feel terrible about painting it. Since it's quite pricey. Let's see, because I 3D printed this. I can paint it and I don't feel bad about it at all. Unless I do a terrible job, then, well, that happens. Can always pick the new one. So painting this is kind of similar to my style for painting the sewers. Yeah, exactly. Just picked another one, right? And this is just like, oh, look, that's a test piece. Haha. Let's move on. And the only problem is that it's kind of hard to tell where the fabric ends I thought I kind of just go with this. So it's currently in that really weird state of painting where everything just looks ugly. And while it's meant to look ugly, because this is a mummified hand after all, it's gonna take a while and a bit of work until it really starts coming together and looking good. I just have to work through the pain. I have to say that being able to remove the eye make this a lot easier to paint. Then a little bit of base coating on the fabric and on most of the flash tones. And that serves the job of letting us know, like, which parts of fabric, which parts are flash tones, and if I want to change stuff up, then it makes it a lot easier to identify what is what. So just gonna let it dry for a little bit, and while I mix up some new colors. I have a bit of purple, and I have a little bit of, I would say, I want a little bit of a kind of disgusting looking green, maybe. But if I make it too green, it's not gonna look that good, right? So let's kind of mix in a little bit of yellow ochre. Do I have any idea what I'm doing? No. Let's make this fun. And remember how I said I was going to use that portrait pink earlier, that skin tone? Let's make some. Fantastic. The nice thing about painting undead skin is that if they are dead or if, they're missing their hand, they can't complain if you don't paint them up well. It's not that many of us see like dead bodies on a daily basis, so it's nothing to really worry about. People are going, hey, it doesn't look like that. But using the yellow ochre with the thing, it's a little bit more of a yellowish skin tone. Very mummy-ish, I suppose. Mixing in more purple. And when I mix in the purple with this, because the purple neutralizes the yellow, I get this ashy purple kind of look, and that's gorgeous. I love it. It's very pretty. Look at that. This ashy purple skin tone. So this particular kind of ashy purple skin tone is also what you're going to use if you're painting undead in general. And I got that just by adding a little bit of skin tone. Like that pinkish skin tone with some yellow ochre and some purple. And it is a pretty close color match to some of my undead skin tone on the purple flesh shadow colors. So if you want to mix your own, now you know. There's your recipe. Yellow ochre, dioxazine purple, and a little bit of an off pink, or flash tone, whatever. Just need to really wash my brush because lots of paint got into the fabric. And while I abuse my brushes on a daily basis, I don't want them to die that fast. So I put this aside, and let's go in with the colors. So I want to give like these areas a little bit more time to dry. They are almost dry. So I'm gonna use this undead skin tone, this really lovely desaturated purple color. And I'm gonna use that on the eye. So why am I using that on the eye? Well, most eyes are actually not pure white. They're actually kind of like this gray or off-white. Can look a little yellowish at times. So I figured that for an archlich, his eye probably looks a little undead. You know, comes with the name, right? Yeah, it looks super zombified, but it's in a really cartoony kind of way. Until the paint dries. So it feels a little strange. It's got a real nice purple all over the eyeball. I'm just making sure that I didn't miss any spot because it's a little hard to reach between the fingers. And cover all of this with paint. Kinda. Got it right there. And of course, the other kind of really fun thing to know is that skin tones in general are lots of interesting colors. They're not like, you know, they're like just pink or red or brown or black or whatever. And when something starts dying, when it starts decaying, you tend to see a lot of really interesting colors all come out. So if you're painting something that's zombified, like say an entire box is zombicide, haha, that reminds me I start to paint. But anyway, if you are painting stuff that's undead, feel free to work these colors into your. Just remember that when blood stops flowing and becomes more stagnant, you're gonna see a lot more of these other skin tone colors showing. So you got a bit of yellow in there, no problem. You look fine. See, I kind of just adding a little bit of yellow on top of the purple as a highlight color. Just tapping it on there in the most arbitrary fashion and wet blending it into purple. I think that I'm gonna mainly focus on the yellow when there's a bit more skin at the joints. And because it's a yellow ochre, it's actually quite desaturated. Though it looks still strange right now, it will get better once it starts drying up. least that's what I tell myself. Just getting in some of the contrasting bits that are standing out. So this is modified, right? So you can still see a little bit of muscle fiber on there. I guess that wizards have more developed muscular hands because they need to cast somatic components. Or, you know, other reasons. Because they're wizards. And this button has been weird. Damn. And I kind of like painting this kind of skull. I really like it. It's kind of sculpt where it just paints itself because just by taking random colors, putting them down on the mini, detail pops out so much. And you can see that it looks zombified enough already. And this part has like a lot of really small holes and stuff. Just gonna kind of let you go over it. I want to have that as like the inner part where it shows just the decay of the niche. And it's a terrible part to watch me painting if you have trypophobia. If you do, I'm sorry. You shouldn't tune in too much for this stream. If you just ate and you have a queasy stomach, I do not recommend listening in as well. It's the veins, strange colors. And it's at this point that you can really see that the fact that I had a little bit of the green underpainting really shows through, right? Because you can see like the color variation on some of these parts. And because I'm painting yellow over green, the yellow looks a little bit more green. And then it's a great highlight for the green. Of course, it stands out really well against the purple. I guess that for a lot of the newer D&D players, they might not know why liches is such a big thing in D&D. Because the use of them to refer to powerful undead spellcasters is a uniquely D&D thing. They actually just come from a language where liches are just kind of undead. And not necessarily powerful arcane spellcasters. But they are an iconic creature for D&D. Multiple lifetimes? Well, a lich is normally a wizard that features the end of their natural life and goes, well, I want to keep studying my books, and I'm sick of cloning myself all the time. I want to be able to feed on souls. to get ultimate arcane power. So I will become a lich. It's like the evolve from the cranky librarian. There's just normally huge drama queens as well. Like, look at me, I'm so evil. Alright, let's sit down, sit down. But some of them are important parts of D&D lore because liches are known to create dungeons in order to entice adventuring parties to go in, get loot from the dungeon, stop the evil lich. And when they die in there, the lich gets to feed on their souls and gain power. So it tends to be really popular among dungeon masters, especially the older players. If I mention older players. Because they were often used as a proxy for the dungeon master themselves. Where yes, you may enter my dungeon and gain riches and loot, but I shall make sure that you fight for it. So Crimson in particular, likes being a lich because he has to indulge his evil drama mama lich queen persona. He likes challenging adventurers in dungeons. Awesome. Okay. Man, this just looks so evil and disgusting. Well, I suppose. Although leveling doesn't matter as much. It does make some souls stronger though, and that makes them tastier. They provide more power. As we know, like wizards as a rule for D&D players are generally just a power fantasy. Wizardry has never been balanced. Yeah, see? You won't believe what the favorite class of D&D block nuts are. Could it be wizard? Who would have thought? That the favorite class of players playing the game by Wizards of the Coast would have the favorite class wizard. In general, full spellcasters are the most fun. Let's face it. Oh, disgusting. Mix in more of the yellow. I'm just gonna start highlights here. wizards coming in as the most popular class of players in Adventurers League, followed by clerics and bards. I can't say I'm really surprised, to be honest. Like, I mean, after a while, the question is, what's your favorite class? Is it the class that you played to double 20, or is it the class that you multi-class lots and lots of characters? Like, if we were to really dig into the data, I think I would ask a few questions, like, what's your favorite multi-class? Or what's your favorite pure class character? So I feel like if you're just talking about multi-class options, then warlocks would definitely be up there, along with sorcerers. Followed by maybe clerics, I guess. Because a one dip in cleric, or two dip in some cases, gives you lots of options. Right? No, I feel like, I'm pretty sure like cleric matters. Just like, two Tempest cleric is so good. One cleric gives you access to a domain, and the domains are normally pretty decent. Like you can get forged domain for some free magic items. Twilight for that initiative advantage giving, it's useful. Yeah, see? Locks, sorcerers, and paladins. If there are anything that Adventurers League players are, it's predictable. I can't say I'm really surprised by those results at all. But I think that cleric should get more love. Along with druids, so maybe to give druid more of a buff in the future, people might actually enjoy playing them more. There's one thing about the classes that are popular is that they work well in a vacuum. They're not reliant on certain environmental options. Not like a druid. Hey, you want a DPS as a druid? Sure, call lightning. Oh, you're indoors. About that. And I would die on this hill, but I think that druids need a buff. Like, to the spell list. So I went back in with more of the yellow. I felt that it was not stand out enough. Right, druids are much better now. I don't deny that. But even so, right, I feel like they are kind of losing out in, especially for the older druids classes like Circle of the Land. Yeah. The problem with druids is that there are too many spells that need concentration. Good spells all need concentration. And there's some really powerful effects, but like, okay, let's say you've leveled until 20 as a druid. You know, or you hit level 17, you get a 9th level spell slot. Awesome. What are your options? Storm of Vengeance, really? I guess you can cast Storm of Vengeance while you're floating around as a bear or something. What else do you have? Shape Change. Hey, guess what? Lots of other classes also get Shape Change. So you're one thing to druid, but you can turn to other things? Yeah, everyone else gets that too. True Polymorph. Yeah. Anti-Life Shell. Wow. That's so useful. And don't clerics get that too? Clerics also get that. I mean, it's better when you are a NPC or like an enemy, but as a PC character, it's mostly exclusive. It just feels like a spell that doesn't break the game. Like Wish breaks the game. You own that Wish is stupidly strong. Foresight is also a consistently amazing buff. Invulnerability ruins every martial DPS stay. But I really think that druids need higher level damage options that are not just concentration, because look, I like firing beams at everyone as much as the rest of you do, but concentration for that. And if you want to like throw some good control spells, they also need concentration. And if you're Moon Druid, what do you do? Ball Shape and Moonbeam. I don't know, but that sounds quite sad to me. I'm liking the yellowish look. A Tsunami is nice, but it doesn't do as much damage as it could. And half the time an outcast Fireball is more useful. I mean, I like spells like Storm Sphere where you can do DPS and control a bit at the same time. But that is not a Druid exclusive spell. It is an arcane spell, so like, what the heck? Give Druids more options. Because at low levels, clerics have the highest single target DPS. At high levels, wizards can just Meteor Swarm and everything. And Tsunami is, but like, what about other spells? And like, when I see people play Druids most of the time at high levels, it's just I polymorph half the party in T-Rexes, and then I kind of sit back and buff everyone. Or no, I conjure lots of animals. Then I spend like half an hour staring at my animal choices, because they're not very good choices. They have good control options, but like, the problem is that if they want a DPS, most of the DPS options are also concentration. Yes. Like, Cowboys get Firestorm, so do druids, but like guiding bolt is an amazing option to have as a oh shit DPS button. And it even buffs your defense attacks. And like what do druids get in comparison? Are you looking at the druid spell list? Yeah, Sunburst is nice. I also like Sunbeam. I guess a high level druid caster is still alright when you get all your spell slots, but the problem is that getting there really sucks. Yes, we have talked a lot about this. And I really should finish writing that druid subclass that I was working on. You know, the super secret one. That is really super awesome. Cough, cough. Cough, cough. So with a little bit of wet blending on the nails, they are looking pretty decent. It's lovely, disgusting color. And I'm gonna add a little bit of highlight to them with the yellow. And that would be the final color. I'm gonna go more gray, a little bit of an off-white tone on the eyes, but this is the underpainting phase. But writing is hard. More if people don't like the subclass, and I'll be very sad. We need playtesters. Also, I think that's one thing about druids that they require a lot of micromanagement. It's like a druid that's played by a newbie that isn't really familiar with the tier of play at high level tiers, and a druid that's played by a really experienced player. It's gonna feel super different. Okay, so we have the dots of color already done on the eyeball, and that's kind of just drying right now. It's going to be highlighted up to an over. Later, let's go and get a bit more off-white applied over that. Right now, over. Brightest color. And then get a little bit of blue. Iris of the eye. Press. TV. Now there's something I think about design space for druids that is untouched. And I would love to see wizards or whoever write some interesting subclasses that really work with that. Because if you look at the PHP, there are a lot of classes that feel like the designers preferred playing certain classes. Like the kinds that popular EL play. But some classes definitely got neglected in this way. I added some primary blue to my wet palette, and I'll just be using that directly on the eye to mark out the center. Hello, Delvirtuoso. Are you like a virtuoso, but a Delva? Thank you for the follow and welcome to the stream. I am, as you can tell, painting a zombified, mummified hand and eye right now. I guess you can say that, you know what, it could be going better, but I have it all well in hand. Yeah. And just messily applying that blue because not too fast if I get a little bit on the outer edge. And hello, how do you find this? Was it from myself, like sharing my Twitch link everywhere? Do you find this on the D&D part of the tag? Repeat. One, focus. Bit of height. So I had to hide my wet palette because the camera decides that the paints on there are really pretty. More pretty than what I'm painting. Love you too, camera. So as I was just saying, we're kind of working through the part of the paint job where it looks like absolute ass. Just so ugly. Like even the blue, which is my favorite color, normally just looks really ugly right now. And I mean, you say that, Rizal, but I have seen people do worse with contact lenses. Just the horror stories of people completely ruining their eyes because of contact lenses from sketchy sources. Oh. And it's still a bit watery at the bottom. So I will come back and fix that up once it's dry. But since I've worked on the flesh and that needs to dry, I've worked on the eye. Definitely use more time to dry. That brings us back to where we were just now, where we were working on the fabric portions. It's time to mix a little bit of the ochre in. And I'm really trying to channel some of like the colors that you see with the mummies and their cloth wrappings here. Ah, oh man. The minis at that time were so small, so tiny. Like the ancient dragons of that time are the size of like what? Adult dragons now? So small. And like half the dragons had this really like weird neck. And they looked like a is it a Jabberwock? It's a really weird snake-like neck. And they were all like white metal miniatures. And you have to paint them with enamel paints. Painting for D&D is so different back then. Ah, I see. But yeah, compared to now, where it's so much easier to get access to all kinds of paints, um, is you can learn painting techniques a lot more easily. You don't just have to buy like white metal miniatures from like a catalog from Valhalla. I think that painting for D&D has come so far, and I love how accessible it is now. Especially when I'm running paint night or painting hangouts, and some people that come in are brand new to painting. And seeing what they can do with the D&D miniatures after a little bit of instruction, that's super awesome. That's my favorite part. So I'm just mixing a little bit of that yellow ochre that had a little bit of the portrait pink in there into my burnt sienna. And I am layering it over the burnt sienna that I applied into the cloth portions earlier. So you will notice that it is a little uneven, but that's also okay because this is partially rotted fabric. So look at that interesting colors on there. Gotta get that contrast going. And this is the kind of miniature where the sculpt does most of the work for you. So some of the colors you're putting on are not completely strange and you are layering up slowly. It's pretty hard for it to look super bad. You actually have to work for it. See. It looks terrible from the front. It looks much better from the back, like many people. But that's besides the case. Besides the point. Just a little bit of color in there. Let this dry. I want to go back to that nice purplish flash tone that I mixed And I want to fix up the area that's around the eye. Just going around the edge here. I think that later on, when I paint this, I'm gonna take a bit of black and just paint in some really clean separation between the purple and the blue. Okay. So you take a look at it from slightly further away. Not half bad. Time to highlight round 2. Let's mix a blue in with the purple, flash tones, and the yellow ochre so I can get some greens. However, a lot of what I'm doing here is to just kind of mix the same colors together and work from various mixes so that even if the colors are a little strange, it all blends together because I use the same colors in the mix. So it's just kind of grayish green right now. Hint of blue in there. And it's going to be really useful because I'm going to use a lot of that in the front. So what song is this? It's interesting. I hear that song again that I liked earlier. It's called Hard Nights. I think. I could be wrong. We'll find out. And so what I'm up to here, and it's been a bit over an hour, almost 1.5 hours. What is everyone else up to? What have you been painting? What have you been reading? What have you been working on? I know I'm gonna stop talking. What about everyone else? Each blue, I'm gonna work on that and the parts that are eaten and that kind of like trypophobia inducing, the holy parts. And I'm gonna be stippling that color right over that one portion. So I'm gonna make sure that it stands out a bit, right? Or maybe I'll do a red wash there later. Some burgundy color. Or violet. And I'm going back to the back and we're stippling in that color between the tendons, right, of the muscle. As this rotted, kind of this webbing like flash. And if you want it to stand out really well, then you want to do what we're doing right now. Have that texture that's building up there. Looks pretty good. I might say so myself. Interesting color. It's even more on the slightly more meaty decaying flash portions. Sure. bring that color into here to highlight. The part of the hand that you're gonna see from the front, because I spent a lot of time working on the back, but half the time you're gonna be seeing the hand from the front. Most of the time, in fact. So I should spend a little bit more time right now adding more texture and highlights to the front. I'm gonna do my best with that. So add that extra color from the each part. Add a little bit of color here and there. And painting this while holding it slightly further away from me because I don't want to get too stuck in the small picture. I'll make sure that what I'm putting on I can see from further away. Right. Fabric. Like this folds of fabric are actually skin, but I pick them more like fabric, especially fabric that's a leathery texture because I mean leather is just very suntan skin. And sometimes it's really easy to forget that when you're working with leather. But there have been times when I've taken out like a entire like hide of leather from the back, because I do leather working as well, and then I just look down at the hide and I'm like, that's a lot of mosquito bites. The poor cow. I know how it feels. Because mozzies love me. I don't know why, but they love biting me. It's very annoying. It is the worst. It's maybe a sign that I need to change shampoo or something. I don't know. Just the worst. For the front, I want to make sure that there's less of the purple. So I am adding more of the green, mixing a little bit more of the yellow ochre into there. Because yellow ochre actually isn't that bright a color. It's only in comparison to all the dark tones we have here already. And I'm kind of digging the look of this right now. Like with that purple and green highlights we have going. It is really creepy. It's not quite mummified yet because a mummified hand tends to look a little more desaturated. A little bit more of the skin tones, but then just purples and greens, just more zombified. Not that I'm the authority on undead skin tones, but means that later on we do have more work to do still. The journey does not end here. Finally, yes. I'm glad you got that fix. Welcome back. Were you having like volume issues? I guess if you're watching on the phone, then that could affect that. You need a good amp. Ah, okay, I see. I mean, what I hate most of doing Twitch on the mobile is that sometimes the it just drops you and your connection from chat, and then when you want to go back and respond, you can't. So you have to leave to close the Twitch app and you have to go back, and then you miss stuff because when you come back, it starts playing an ad. That is the worst. I hate that so much. This from far is looking gloriously creepy out there. I love it. And to be honest, if I was really lazy, I could just leave it like this. I think it'd be fine. But that would be too easy. So where are you, my titanium buff? That's not titanium buff. Very unflattering sound along with that, but that's normal if you're working with paint bottles like this. Should probably also clean this out. Oh, are you working in your PC? What kind of build are you doing for it? Because even though graphics card prices have gone down, they are still by no means cheap. Okay, so I mixed a bit of yellow ochre with a bit of titanium buff, and I'm applying that all over. It's gonna get some off-white fabric. And maybe I should just dry brush that. At least for the final layers. I'll leave that for now. It's time to paint in the red for that. See, it's so much easier to paint red when you have that brighter color underneath. I'm just painting fast and quick right now. And just going over the part I just painted off-white. And we'll darken it later. But this provides a nice bit of contrast with the bright blue eyes. And of course from the green and purple skin tones. Ah, yes. Ryzen 5 is decent. Can't complain about that. Like, the only things that have gotten cheaper over time is just memory. Everything else is just still way too expensive. I'll wait for that weight to dry and dull down. And in the meantime, I have that off-white that I need to mix in with my purple. It's definitely a bit more of an off-purple tone here. And like I said, the sclera needs to be brought up in color. Right? It was for a while, it was to the point where my old graphics card, like my old 1060, was it Ti or was it 1070, was on par with buying a current generation graphics card. And that's just ridiculous. Like, that should not be happening. It's a nice ashy purplish gray color of the eye to be. Just need to bring up that tone slowly. It's not just a pandemic price project, right? It's also crypto. And the fact that, just a lot of factories had issues, and it's gonna take a while for the chip industry to really catch up with demand. It takes a while for them to grow the silicon chips. Extend this a bit. Yeah, good. Absolutely. Chip production problems, coupled with pandemic issues with supply and shipping, it's just not fun. I can see a bit of a purple divide at the top. It's not quite right. I need to blend the purple a bit. Yeah, like for example in Texas, the power outage in some of the chip factories really set things back for quite a while. Yeah, same to be honest. I normally only really catch up on like computer news when I need to upgrade mine. Or if a friend mentions something and I check stuff out. Okay. Alright, I like that pipe. And with that, I don't think I'm gonna really do too much different for the eyeball. Beyond maybe going in to paint the veins. But right now, that needs a bit of time to dry. So I'm just gonna quickly touch up some portions. Thank you. To be quite honest, I'm just figuring it out as I go. I am I'm not the art trained, right? So a lot of things that people kind of naturally know because they would train in color theory and whatever. I kind of had to figure out on my own, and that can make life really difficult at times. So half the time when I'm painting, I'm kind of just experimenting as I go, using a bit of knowledge that I picked up from friends, from reading online, from better painters than I am, and doing my best, putting in the work to make sure that it turns out okay. Volume issue? Alright. I don't think they can hear me, right? Got party. Look at purple with the red. Right. Come on. Darken down this way. Give me the dark way. Yeah, that's the stuff. So I just apply this almost as a wash. And hit the insides. Purple in there. And since I have the nice dark red on there, it's time to work on the base, which I have conveniently forgotten about until now. Round 2, base coating, electric boogaloo. And it is going on a lot better this time. You can see the difference. If you can't see the difference. Consider getting new spectacles. It's a good investment. So you also notice that I am not just rotating the piece as I go and trying to move my brush in the same direction. Alright. Have fun, Delva. Take care. And good luck with computer build. I hope it turns out awesome. Remember to move your miniature, or whatever you're painting, in your hand. It's a lot easier than like rotating your brush everywhere and getting in at all the awkward angles. I just stop and take a quick break soon to hydrate. Hydration's a great idea. Dehydrating is a terrible idea. Took a little bit of time to work on this a bit more before that point. Just a bit of purple into the red to make it richer, cover it a bit better and darker. shadows later. This paint really does dry super translucent. To make sure that I'm not blending too much. Only to have that blending disappear the moment the paint starts actually drying. So it's not looking too bad. A bit more of this top part. Waiting for the hand to finish drying because I think my next step for it is going to be dry brushing. Ooh, is it not hearing my voice? Or is it just the music in the background dropping the bass? Because I have not been saying very much. And I think that my final step is actually going to be some airbrush work, or close to it, where I can just do a filter over the flash tone or something, just to get the slightly less rotten look, a bit more mummified, I guess. If we just place that by hand as well, but then I have to wait for this to dry. Reference for painting eyes. Time for the fun part. What is the fun part, you ask? It's mixing the blue with a bit of the off-white and painting the inner part of the eye. So earlier on I had to a little bit of this color. So I want a slight gradient going on here. And it is look magical. It's not like exactly the kind of thing that your player characters would go up to, but ooh, what's that? Shiny magic eye. And then it makes them want to replace the eye with the shiny magic eye, and bad things happen. So that's what player characters do, make bad life choices. A bit more white into that. Get that purple into that. Okay, look. A bit more color in the layer. So you get nice, almost glowing blue there. And I just go in with a slightly smaller brush and refine that. Still after that, just not needed. Art normally has it looking greenish. Which means that I need to go back and fix that. But the good news is that I already have the perfect green for that. And I can just leave the blue at the edges as the shadow color. I'm very smart. Do I need to stretch? I don't want to stretch. Hey Natalia. Yes, it is Vecna. I'm working on the eye right now. And I decided after a while of actually painting the eye that I should check what color the eye of Vecna usually is. Apparently Vecna has green eyes, so I am fixing that right now. Yeah, there's like kind of like green white glow to it. So I need to fix that. Should be easy enough. And thank you, I'm glad you like it. This is actually quite fun to paint. I mean, for one, it's like way larger than most of the minis I paint. So it's a lot less stressful on the eyes. Just a little bit of that off-white, mixed with a little bit of yellow and then green. Okay, yeah. Let's build up the green in there. Yeah, I'm fine with it having a little bit of the blue still. I think it looks pretty good even with the blue. And like the center is going to be painted black anyway, so it's not an issue if it remains blue for now. So I let it dry for a little while so I stop painting over parts. But having the depth and the blue in there, that's really look pretty good. So I can't complain. That looks decent. Right. So the next part to work on is, I think, bringing up the color of the nails a little bit more. Make sure that it has that slightly kind of like bony look. And because it's gonna dry, white, dark, like not too fast. How about the high contrast right now? So hey, thanks for tuning in. If you just joined us, yes, I'm working with Vecna. I am working, in fact, on painting Vecna using colors mixed entirely from scratch, but using a lot of single pigment colors from the student artist acrylic section of the craft store. Yeah. And it kind of just proves that you don't really need super fancy miniature paints to paint stuff, especially when it's something still larger in scale like this. Yeah, I like how the eye looks now. It's on this greenish, bluish teal tone to it, and that's my favorite color. So Yes. Eyeball is very scenic. I like it. And I don't have any black on hand, so I'm just gonna quickly purple out the center of the eye to give me a better idea of what it would look like with the black. Not bad. And be like so close to done, right? Let me think. Yes, I'm missing one thing. I have some red, and I need to paint some veins. So I'll make sure that this red is sufficiently thinned down, but also that it's not super chunky. Try using the size one that I've not touched in forever for that use. A little bit. So see all this nicely sculpted veins. I just want to hit all of them. Okay, is it obvious? Not as much as I like it to be, so I'll go a little thicker with the paint. And this is the only time you'll see that, using miniature paints is really a better idea, because you want paints that flow off the brush and are a little thinner, but I can still make it look. It's just need to keep the brush wet a bit more. And also I'm being a little less precise with my placement for this purpose. It's a little annoying, so I guess I'm gonna switch to a miniature paint for this. Let's see. Which paint do I have on hand that will work for this? Nice and easy boat tribal red, which is the closest cabin red anyway. And it's not weighted because I can just use a little bit of that later on for highlighting the red fabric. And this is where, the extra flow improver that's added to miniature paints really comes in handy if you're drawing those nice, clean, weight lines. You see the difference here? Like, that was so much easier to do. And when you take a look at it from the front, it looks really good because you really have that almost glow, like red glow against the blue and green of the eye, and against the purplish ashy tones that we've used to paint the eyeball. try and focus a little bit, draw some lines, kind of follow the lines that are already sculpted onto here, but also spread out the color a little bit. Because the lines sculpted on here are kind of really thick. So I'm just trying to follow like the middle of the lines. And help some of the veins join up. Because like a vein going to nowhere without any other vein to join it is a very sad vein. It's just this spot has like a huge outburst of veins. Pretty interesting. Take this and paint from the top. A little bit more brush control needed here, but I'm actually being a little careless with painting. And just trying to have the veins end a sharper tip, because having the vein end like on a very thick line doesn't look very good. And I'm just using the originally sculpted veins as a guide. So see, I can't really see that much further in. I'm kind of just kind of painting the vein that's between the fingers here. It's really hard to see it super well, so I'm not gonna be super fast about it. A little bit of veins here. I just freehanding a couple of veins, I think. That's a bit too much. I'm trying to paint them all the way until the edge here, because this edge is gonna be painted black. So I want the vein to look as though they extend into the eye itself. Right. And I think that's about right for now. It looks plenty bloodshot. And I'm gonna take a little bit of that off-white, mix in a little bit more of the yellowish green, and highlight a bit more. So I'm just adding a bit of a off-white texture at the center so that it looks a bit more like a glow. Alright. Hey, good night. Thanks for coming by. You should be able to post pictures of this really soon. Take care. Have a good night's rest, because this weather is way too hot. And I'll see you next week, when you come for your D&D game. Okay, now it's the time for black. Black It's right around the dark blue rim. And that will really help the eye stand out even more. So you can see it in progress here as I build up the inner lining of black. A little bit more water with that. And I have to be careful not to accidentally paint into the sliver of the eyeball. But the difference and the parts that have it already is pretty stark. It's pretty good. So keep going slowly. It's about 1/3 the eyeball done. And just rotating this as I go to make it a nice clean dark line. And it's not perfectly clean. I have to do a bit of cleaning up. Black. Just drawing a few very sharp lines along the part that's previously dark blue. To help it look more like one cohesive piece. Edge of the black with that dark blue again. So that it is less obvious. There's a chunk of black because you want the black to look like it's just coming in at the edges. Not a connection. So a large chunk. Because you don't want to spend too much time going back and forth with this. It's just me being a little, I guess, too focused Just one part. But I noticed that because I subconsciously try to avoid the thumbnail, I tend to not paint that part as brightly as other parts. So it's a little bit of further into to pay attention to. And that's much better. I think we are pretty good for now. Go through this, being the larger brush. And painting in the center. So you want it to be black. And you see really dark purple, oh, very dark. It has to be black. There. That's the eye sorted. Looking very nice and creepy. And then just take a look at what it looks like on the base. And I'm really almost done with this. I'm not sure if I really want to spend that time doing that extra glaze on the skin. So I'm gonna just try and finish up painting the red on the base. Just so happens I have access to really nice, really bright red. And remember, at this point, I'm just building up the highlights for the red. If there are any parts that are in shadow and I lose the shadow, that's okay. That's super easy to fix as compared to having to build up the red. So I'm just focusing on adding more red all over. And I think it's a pretty good place to stop for tonight. Take a look at it. It looks pretty damn good. I'm gonna close this first. Just show off where we stopped. So this is where we ended for tonight. That's 11:18 p.m. and I should really get going. So lots of stuff to do. And it never ends. But here's the hand and eye of Vecna as painted by me. It's been just about 2.5 hours that we've been working on this. And I am pretty happy with how it turned out. So probably spent a little bit of time finishing up the base, and then I'm gonna call this done. I'm gonna seal it, do some weathering on the fabric, on the hand itself, and then it'll be up for display in our store. And if you want your own copy, I can paint you one that's just like this. Not just like this, but close enough, right? Put this down. And you know, if you prefer to paint your own, if you like watching what we're working on and want to have your own take on the hand of Vecna, then of course this will also be available in the store for you pretty soon. But if you're here tonight, thanks for joining me. Thanks for coming by, hanging out, even if it's just for a short period of time. It was really fun. So this is Jazion signing out. Have a good night, everyone. I'll see you around. It's time to go to the stream and speak.